Information can act as the great equalizer, a stabilizer for your business to win over the fiercest of your competition. However, if you don't know how to decipher the sea of information on the ship of your business, then you're destined to drown. Jason Grant says the way we do business is broken. He's the founder of the automated method, whose goal is perfecting business through cloud continuity and process innovation without worrying about IT. Simply put, the automated method allows business operators to become business owners by turning the focus back onto their business. Grant joined me this week to have a discussion about how we can simplify business operation and bureaucracy in order to maximize the potential and profits in business. I'm Kevin McShane. Let's have this conversation. Absolutely. So, Jason, if you're ready, I'll welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to learn about the automated method and all you do to help businesses streamline their operations. Great to see you this afternoon, and thanks so very much for being here.
Yeah, thank
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jason, I know the automated method, and your number one goal is to help business operators transform back into business owners. So, I'm wondering if you can tell me all about the good work that you do over there at the automated method.
Well, it's even easier than that. It's like, I think, how about we just say this? A lot of businesses forget what they're in business for, right? Like, I think that when you think about operations, what happens is that becomes the primary focus of the business, not actually what the business is for. Does that make sense? So usually an ownership or owners or partners or whatever, they get sucked into the operations of the business because that's just kind of, that's how they started, that's how they got there. But what I would say is that what we help do is we help remove like owner minds from operations so that the maximum amount of automation can take away from you actually having these responsibilities that software would do for you. That's how easy it is. But finding the business owners that agree with you, that's a different story.
Well, everybody has their own operating system, and sometimes it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, isn't it?
It's funny. It's funny that you say operating system because it's exactly what it is. It's not like this, like an operating system, like a software operating system. It's their human operating system. They become so ingrained to these patterns and these routines that if you try to change something, even if it's for the better, forget it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for the automated method, you guys use a path to least resistance mentality. So I'm wondering if you could go into that for me.
Yeah. Hey, well, here, this is the easiest thing. You know what I could tell you, Kevin? It's like if you were to build any business, you could actually write it down on paper with all the processes involved and without even inserting people yet and without even inserting software. Like I'm just talking like figuring out the workflow without software. And then you add software, and then obviously all the automatic technologies are in there, and then you add people. But I would say path of least resistance right now is rethinking the process, period. Because imagine you could do anything. There's so much magic out there. There's so much automatic magic out there that like, if you were to be able to think it again, rethink your whole business again, that's what I suggest people do. Rethink it all over again. All of the, if this happens, then this, if this person does this, then this, write it out, then we start to work with software. You see? So when people say path of least resistance, I'm like, that hasn't changed since the inception of business, that idea. It's just that I think people now, they basically get so lost in the fact that software is supposed to help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
Jason, I don't know how much research you did on me, but I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. It simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally. And one of the advantages that I use in my life is the advancement of technology, and I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That you can relate that to business as well. So I'm wondering your thoughts on how you think technology can help streamline business, and also how do you think we get more people with disabilities interested and thriving in business?
Oh, that's okay. Well, all SaaS products, SaaS, software as a service, right? The entire internet is all software as a service, right? Basically a tab in Google Chrome or an app on your phone. Like they both all talk cloud, et cetera, et cetera. All they're doing, like the engineers, right? Thinking about this software, their entire the reason for their existence is to remove as much human interaction as possible, right? So I don't like to use the word automation for that reason. I would think that it's just automatic technologies inside the SaaS world. So say, for example, when you were saying with disabilities, well, I'll be honest with you, a lot of these softwares do so many things that people don't realize that if you even were to just dive into one of them, the majority of the stuff there it would already make it easier than doing it manually. Does that make like there's so many things I could talk about with that. That's a huge question, Kevin.
What? How do you want to break it down? Is there any subsection you want?
Okay, better. How about this? Using like a mouse, right? Like say, for example, the more that you can have automatic technologies do, the less you have to operate a mouse, right? Because what you're doing is you're just macroing, scheduling, you're imprinting patterns of what you would normally do with a keyboard and a mouse on your computer. And then once it's been, learned by the software, or you've imprinted it in the software with whatever the features are the software has already to do that, you never have to do it again, right? It just does it for you. You see?
Once you train it once, you don't have to do it again. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like that repetition that I feel like a lot of people do manually, even with certain SaaS products already, because they haven't learned the advanced level of what that product can do for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I also know one of your other passions in business is helping business owners sort of optimize the productivity of their people. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about that.
Well, that's the same thing, right? Like if you were to rebuild your entire business with everything that's available right now, the proper way, with like the most modern, proficient, optimized app stack ecosystem, period. And then you were to, insert people here, what changes? Their roles and responsibilities. Like whatever it was before, an ecosystem A, which is probably a Franken system, to whatever it is now, which is, your new ecosystem, the most optimized version of your business, people have to do less. So their responsibilities change because there's a lot of automation already in there. You know what I mean? So in terms of like all of this that you're talking about, it's just the same answer. It's just turn it all on, right? Turn it all on, and it makes everybody's life easier.
And tell me, Jason, I'm curious, what do you think is the biggest mistake new entrepreneurs make when they...
I've heard this question before. I've been asked this question before. The biggest mistake?
Yeah. I figured you might have been asked that question before. What do you think the biggest mistake that new entrepreneurs make?
Paying themselves incorrectly. Because just because you have an idea and just because you get resources, whether it be a loan or whether it be your own investment, when you salarize yourself, you make sure you KPI yourself as an owner as well. So if you've been inside the business, building the business, you know how the operations work because you probably built the operations, whether it be automatic technologies in a SaaS product or your own like workflow that you worked out. What I find business owners is they value themselves too high. in a business, right? And the business needs those resources to grow, to scale. So don't think so highly of yourself while you're scaling your business, right? Don't pay. I'm not saying pay yourself less, but I am kind of saying pay yourself less until you can get to that point where the business scales itself, and then you're actually, eat what you kill. So you're basing your, personal wealth gain from the business based on the performance of the business, not because you just determined how much you're worth in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
Jason, you also tell people that they should embrace remote departments as well, and not to have that work against them, but have it work for them. So I'm wondering if you could tell me about.
Okay, so this is it's actually part of the, it's just part of the automated methods branding. I don't like outsourcing, because when you say outsource, to me all that means is someone not in your institution. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's as far removed as like somewhere else in the universe. It's just outside of your institution. So when I started thinking about how you build a business with fractionalized consulting, fractional this, et cetera, which is the new gig, right? The new way of making a business work is by finding little pieces and putting them all together yourself. And when I came up with remote departments, all I was doing was finding these departments, finance, marketing, sales, operations, IT, whatever, and then outsourcing them, but calling them remote departments, and then finding another business that did that for them, and joining forces together as an agency to modernize the whole work, all of it, right? It's like the first time you've ever had all of the departments in your business outside of your institution, primary contact being someone in the institution, probably a controller, probably some sort of human nucleus inside. But if you're all remote anyway, why do you have to have an HR department? There are businesses out there that are your HR remotely. Does that make sense? So
It does, yeah.
So the easiest way to look at this is there's an app for everything, right? Well, guess what? There's an app for each department. So if obviously modern finance, be QuickBooks Online or Xero, FreshBooks or whatever. There you go. There's your books. There's your bank, right? And then you'd have like your HR, the humans, whatever. That's usually like Collage, Humi. There's a whole bunch of apps out there, but there are institutions out there that will supervise, set up, and support that app for you on a retainer. Well, that's outsourcing, but not really. We call it remote departments. I had to soften that idea by creating that kind of remote work parallel, and it works, because in Toronto here, I just found businesses that were in like 100-kilometer radius, the Google special. And I found businesses that were app centric, meaning they would be that specialist for that app for you anyway. So that would be your remote department. Do you see what I mean? And that's like kind of like the secret sauce, is just brokering those people together.
Yeah, the way of sort of streamlining your business so you can get back to why you started a business in the first place. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the specialist, if your whole department is an entire other business, like you don't have a lawyer that works inside your business, right, Kevin? You would have a lawyer. Well, that's kind of like remote legal, right? So why don't you just have that type of professional relationship with another business for every app in your business? Like, that's even just saying that without even using the automated method, whether it's a philosophy or a business, whether it's financial or just an idea, like that's huge. Just there's your model. There's all the apps you use. Find all the apps and then basically associate another business to that app. Done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And for you, I'm always fascinated to ask business people and entrepreneurs about inclusion, diversity, and equity, or DE&I, because, before I hosted this podcast, I was the job developer over at the YMCA here in Windsor.
Okay.
So I'm curious to ask you about diversity, equity, and inclusion in business, and what that looks like for you moving forward.
Oh, well, look at everybody's good at they have so much talent when you only get them to do what they want to do. Okay. So it doesn't matter. That's inclusive to everybody for success, right? I feel like giving people jobs that they don't want to do is the worst decision ever, right? It's the worst decision ever. They all want to do something, but everybody wants to do something they want to do. But so I feel like a lot of these cool tricks with software remove all the things that people don't want to do anyway. And I'm talking across the board, everybody. So you're basically finding superstars, doesn't matter who they are, but you're finding them and you're just assigning them that one superstar task. So that's like inclusion of everybody. You see what I mean? Like, it's like there, and also if you make it such a, like an ecosystem of like remote everything, well, it doesn't matter where anybody is, right? And it also like, it doesn't always have to be, it's just like, it's magic. I'm like, I get so excited when people ask questions like that, because I've found people in my journey that are really good at like one thing, but if you ask them other things to do, well, that kind of makes their job less. Like you don't get the same output. So then you could just include everybody and just give them all their superstar jobs and turn on all the automation. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like that's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question.
Well, no, it's a comprehensive way of answering it, so I appreciate it.
Sure. And that's me.
Well, of course. And Jason, tell me, you said you have a sort of a new way of looking at business post-pandemic. I'm wondering if you can tell me about it.
Well, I guess the easiest way is post-pandemic, the work-life balance equation. Like, work isn't what it used to be. I'm sure you know this. Everybody knows this. It's all over the place. It's like no one wants to work anymore. And I can see why. It's because if it's something monotonous and something routine and something they don't like, no one wants to do it. They had a lot of time to think over pandemic. So the work-life balance formula is, out of whack. So in terms of going forward, it has to be redefined. Like all the protocol related relationships with time and money and what people do and why, that all has to change. That, the language of work, everything, or else you're not going to get anywhere anymore. Like, it's really, a lot of it changed completely. I'm sure, so that's where a business needs to really focus their energy on, is like making sure that their institution is designed for people to want to work there. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it leads to my next question, as I'm sure you know that since we're in the middle of this pandemic, there are
yes.
we're still in the middle of
you mean 2021 chapter 2 or 2021 part 2?
Pretty much. And I know that you know this. There's a labor shortage in a lot of industries because people are quitting their jobs in droves, and some of them are because they want to start their own business. So I'm wondering if you have an opinion on sort of the mass resignation and
the great exit, the great resignation. Do I have an opinion? Yes, of course I do.
Could you share it with me?
Of course. How long do I have? Yeah, no, there's many ways to look at this. I gotta think of, everybody has a lot of time to think about what they wanted to do. So if they don't want to work for you anymore, they're going to go somewhere. Gone. That's number one. Number two, what if re-education, go back to school? That's another option there as well. So when people say a labor shortage, I don't think it's a labor shortage. I like to correct that and say that there's a value proposition problem, because there's people that want to work, right? So they will start their own business because finally they get an option so no one can tell them what to do, right? It's like small business 101 all over again, except smaller businesses. Independent side hustles become like their primary focus, because why not? Everything's messed up, so why don't I try something new? And I feel like, how long is that going to last? This is me being super forward. If I was to speculate that everybody got their way, does that make sense? Like, if everybody got their way and they became small business owners, entrepreneurs, and they wanted to be successful and all that kind of stuff, now you have so much competition, just tons of competition. And how do you assign the services and deliverables to this economy when everybody's working for themselves? You see, like, I see this great exit being a solution to a problem where people want something better. I get that. It's going to have to come back a little bit because not everybody is good at business, right? Not everybody's good, because that it takes a lot. It's a lot. It's sometimes too much. Being an entrepreneur is great. However, in small business construction over quarantine, because there's a lot of facilities out there, a lot of faculties, a lot of things that help, but you got to really have the head for it. It's stressful.
Yeah.
Running a business is stressful, man. Like, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I think what happens is when this business changes from like the side hustle to, and I don't want to get anybody angry about this, but I'll call it real business, when it has, corporate areas, and you have to have spend on certain things, and you even have to pay a lawyer, or you have to pay an accountant more often, or you have to, there's so many professional services that come up, and you're like, wow, that's more than I pay myself. Well, I mean, you need some, like, the business became a real business. Does that make sense?
Well,
it's a hard one, because I want everybody to get what they want. But it's like, how many small businesses can you have? Like, I can't, like, thousands more? Millions more?
You have to be careful not to oversaturate the market, right? So,
well, it's just too many options, right? It's too many options.
Yeah, absolutely. And my final question for you, Jason, has to do with your own personal impact in business. What do you think you'll know that you've made a substantial impact in the world of business?
How about the people that finally have more free time? That's what I can say. Like, if you, my give back personally is anything that I model, anything that I design is all about time savings. Like, time is more valuable than money. So if, say, for example, you redesign, reworkflow, reprocess a business, use all the right stuff, make all the right choices, this is all consulting and design, right? And then when you launch, that owner or, whoever, they only have to work 1/10 as much as they did before. Well, now they have that other 90% of their, bandwidth to do whatever they want with. That's where I feel good, because whatever you want to do with that extra 90% you free up is up to you, but you got it, right? It's there. It's there. It's not false. It's real. It's right there. You're only having to work 10% of your capacity the same way you did before. Done. So hopefully that creates, like, where business owners can become more aware of why they're in business again. I don't know. There's so many things, but that's where I feel good, because I'm like, you're working too hard, man. You're working too hard.
Yeah, I know that's one of your taglines. So
yeah.
I've got one follow-up since you brought that up. How do you think people can sort of generate a better work-life balance so that they don't work themselves to the point of exhaustion, but feel like they still accomplish something?
Yeah, so that's communication protocols between people and software. That's where it needs to be. That's where people need to focus, because I feel like if you have every technology at your disposal, you've got, it doesn't matter if it's like a chat app, texting, or SMS, to email, to, like, whatever it is, phone calls, Zoom, Meet, I don't care, Microsoft Teams, Slack, those communication protocols all in there. If you don't use them properly, what you're doing is you're basically just using all of them improperly. And then who are you talking to on the other end? How are you communicating with them? Improperly. You see, like, it just cascades all the way down. It's a protocol problem. So find out when you use something and why, right? Instead of using everything because you can. That's like where I feel, especially in a new business, everybody turns on everything. And then all of a sudden their live chat on their website's connected to their Facebook Messenger, to WhatsApp, and it's just a mess. And then you're just on your phone all the time, running things, because you've turned on all of these communication methods for either the other business, for the consumer, or for your team. And so it's just red dots all over the place, populating each of the apps. But if you were to figure out, streamline, which one of those red dots you're supposed to look at for what purpose, instead of just doing an all send or an all reply, or if, you know, and that's why I hate email. Don't even get me started about email. But you see, everything's available and everybody uses it wrong. That's what I can say about that.
Well, since you said don't get you started, I will get you started. Why do you hate email so much?
Well, put it this way: it's the one protocol that you can project your expectations with. And the reason why I say that is because there are no rules. So if you send an email, what is your expectation of how fast someone replies? That's number one. Now, these days, people that are very forward, that don't use email inside their team at all, I would tell them that it's 24 hours. I would say if you're using Slack or Microsoft Teams, something can, really, really tight in your inside team. When you're using outside email communication, which isn't inside your team, if you're communicating, depending on the type of channel, support and sales are interesting, but if depending on the type of channel, it's a directional of one reply per day. Like, you could do that if you have such an efficient system, but no one believes that. So they use email like a weapon. They project their expectations on the send. And if you don't reply fast enough, they'll call you or they'll send another email. It just becomes this absolutely ridiculous game of who's going to CC who's going to reply all and not reply all, who's getting forwarded this email, and when. That's why I hate email. And then here's the best part. When do you turn email off? Say, for example, which is why in Ontario, there's all these new things passing for, like, bosses, quote unquote, being able to email past 5:00 p.m. and all this kind of stuff. I can see why. Say you had a project that has a lot of deliverables due. They're your responsibility, but you sent out everything that you finished at like 4:50 p.m. Closed your notebook, went home, or like closed your notebook and went to your life. There's a bunch of people in there that their expectations are that you're going to check your email between that 5 p.m. period and 9 a.m. the next day. Do you disagree? Probably, so their business is still running in their head, but you have said, no, I'm done for the day. So everybody's waiting for 9:00 the next day, except some people there that would have been willing to work all night. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why email's broken, man.
And that's
100%.
And that's why you hate email. Absolutely.
Well, because I don't want people to feel guilty for finishing their day. I don't like turning on and off is a very important feature. That's your work-life balance problem right there. And so if you're on your phone 24/7, business doesn't stop. Now, I'm not saying that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with you. I was just going to share a story with you. So when I worked at the YMCA, I worked in the basement of the YMCA, right? And I worked in an office. It was an open air office.
Okay.
And my boss's desk was directly next to mine.
Okay. Yeah.
So every day I took accessible transportation to work, and every day,
gotcha.
My day started at 8:30.
Okay.
But because I was relying on one of those transportation services, they didn't pick me up until 5:15, and my boss left at 4:30, and I had to learn. Just because it's in your inbox doesn't necessarily mean you have to answer it right away.
But that's in your inbox. Like, that's a perfect example. That's in your inbox inside, like, computer land, not phone land, right? Like, if you were to have your email on your phone, you take that inbox item with you, and the chances of you not reading it and engaging it emotionally are like zero. You're probably going to emotionally engage it. And then your night, like, you have to be super professional to be able to guide your mind away from thinking about it ever again until the morning, right? Like you got to be able to be some sort of, you got to put yourself away from this email you read at 5:30, let's say, and you know who it's from. So if it's someone above in the hierarchy of the business, you think, shit, what are they asking me to do? Do I have to do it? Can it wait? You see, like that game stinks, man. And then so for you to not engage the email and leave, that's a power move, man.
It took a little bit because I would
Sure
go home and check my work email.
Oh yeah, see, it doesn't end. It doesn't end. It's like what everybody does. It's the way that I can say I notice this a lot is when I would look at people when they use their phone. So if I'm a social observer, if I'm like, watching people interact with their phones, the thing is these days, if you open your email after hours, all you need to see is who it's from. If your brain catches who's it's from, you now you can't stop thinking like, should I look at and also you might even see the preview pane, or you might even see the subject. Like your whole 5 to 9, not your 9 to 5, your 5 to 9 relationship is messed up because you could, and the guilt is why people check their email after hours, is because they're like, am I holding the project back? Am I holding something back? Is something urgent? Does someone need me? It doesn't end.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, as you know, we're both Canadian, so I'm curious to ask you, away from the office, what are some of your passions, and for you, what's the best part about being Canadian, buddy?
Are you kidding me? Like I, for the first time, have started to work with a lot of businesses in the United States and some businesses internationally. And I love sharing my Canadianness with people over the internet. So because they already have an expectation, which is never bad. And so if being Canadian, I love representing Canada, giving whoever that is on the other end of the Zoom or the Meet or the video con or the phone, whatever, what it actually is, because I love it. Right. So you can see how their expectations are already positive, and then I get to reinforce it. That's why I love being Canadian, because it's like Canada has already done such a good job of indicating how awesome we are to the rest of the world that I'm just an advocate.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, what do you like to do to decompress away from work, buddy?
These days, I love hanging out with Alyssa and my daughter, for sure, Alyssa and Aurora. So I've got she's 9 months old yesterday, and she was born under quarantine circumstances. Alyssa was pregnant during quarantine, and so our whole condo life is surrounded with this, environment for Aurora. So basically what I'm saying is that anytime I'm not, at a WeWork space or whatever, I'm with them. So I always say that should be, if you're a business owner, because if time is more important than money, well, doing anything else, because I love business, don't get me wrong, but like doing that kind of stuff, I get to hang out and, get to see it's like a playground. You know what I mean? Like my home is like now turned into what it would be to have to raise a child in quarantine, and it's fun. So I love hanging out there. You know what I mean? Whereas some people, I feel like they work from home, so it gets really interesting. So I get to move away and come back, and it's rewarding, and I don't really take work home. The only thing I would say that I do is I do have a Zoom setup, or like a iMac with a ring light and whatever in my office, in our home. And sometimes, depending on how my calendar works, by the way, you should be very calendar forward, not email forward, which is why I'm going to drop Calendly like I do every single time. You want a business owner to start to get better with their schedule is Calendly. Forward thinking calendars. For real.
I use it all the time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
It's the best.
If it's not on my calendar, I don't do it.
Yeah. And it's great because, think about, when you email someone and your people are projecting their managed expectations in the email. Well, if you're using something like Calendly, you're already giving up your time that you were already going to give up to the public anyway. So it's like they get to choose your time that you were giving up anyway to the public. So it's like there's no back and forth. That's like already an answer to a, if you have a time management problem.
Calendly, it's lowered my blood pressure a lot. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, you and all of us, man. You and all of us.
Absolutely. And Jason, finally, tell me if people want to get connected with the automated method, what's the best way they can do that, buddy?
Well, believe it or not, I use email as a function, so it makes it super, super simple. It's start at the automatedmethod.com. It's like, and it's your function, Zapier.com, if you're curious. See, I wanted to teach people how email is a function, not a person, right? Which is what it can be used as. And then Zapier is obviously a good trigger point to learn about automation. So instead of me saying like, go to theautomatedmethod.com or, DM on this platform or this social platform or hit me up on LinkedIn. I mean, they're all go to the same place. They're all bots. But I mean, when you think about email as a function, it changes people's relationship with it, which is a good teaching tool. That's why I use my call to action as an email.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Jason. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
About automating businesses and making them more optimal. Your time, energy, efforts on my behalf are most appreciated, and I want to thank you.
Yeah, mine too, man.
For being here. I love these conversations.
Yeah. Anytime. You want me back, Kevin? You just ask anytime.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Since we're both Canadian, we have to stay in touch. You know that, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. It's an obligation. It's a requirement.